Hi, friends. This is the reading lesson for third grade. We are going to read another folk tale in our new booklet called Making Decisions. Please make sure that you have two different color highlighters again. We're going to do something similar to what we did yesterday. And if you don't have two different color highlighters, you can use two different colored pencils. That would be fine. And you need to be open to page 6, and you also need a pencil. All right, if you are ready, we will go ahead and get started. We are going to read this story. We are going to find the problem and the solution like we did the other day. And we are going to highlight those in the different colors. And then at the end, you're going to write a summary. Okay, so let's get started.
Short read 2. Remember to annotate as you read.
The Three Spinsters by the Brothers Grimm. There was once a girl who just would not spin. Her poor mother could not persuade her to work the wheel and make thread. At last the mother lost patience and screamed, "Ah!" She so scared the girl, she too screamed, "Ah!" At that moment the queen passed by. She swept into the house and asked what the screaming was for. The woman was ashamed to tell of her daughter's poor spinning ability, so she said, "I cannot stop her from spinning. She spins and spins and spins some more. I am poor and cannot furnish her with enough flax."
All right, friends, so let's stop there for a minute. So they are spinning what is called flax, which comes from a plant. You might have heard of something called like flaxseed. Maybe your moms or your dads put it in smoothies for you. So it comes from a plant, and they are spinning it into yarn. So as you can see, these are big balls of yarn that are used to make clothing. Okay, does that kind of help make you understand what's going on so far? So that was the mother's job, but the girl did not want to do that, or she couldn't do it. Okay.
The queen thought, then said, "My sons and I like nothing better than the sound of the spinning wheel. Let me take your daughter to the castle. I have plenty of flax. She shall spin to her satisfaction." At the castle, the queen showed the girl 3 rooms filled with the finest flax. "Now spin, and when you have spun a ton," said the queen, "you shall marry my eldest son."
All right, so we kind of know the problem so far, right? We know that this mother told the queen that her daughter is such a great spinner, but they don't have any flax to spin. Now, remember this daughter? Remember what we learned about her? She just would not spin. So this mother lied to the queen. Let's see what happens.
The girl was thoroughly terrified. She could not have spun the flax even if she lived to be 100 years old. "Oh, why did my poor mother say I could spin?" she said, crying herself to sleep. When the queen returned, she saw no spinning had been done and was much surprised. The girl excused herself by saying she had not been able to spin because of her distress since leaving home. The queen accepted the excuse, then said, "Tomorrow you must start to spin." While staring out the window instead of spinning, the forlorn girl saw 3 women passing by. "What fine spinners they must be," thought the girl.
Okay, so here, first of all, let's talk about this word forlorn. So this is describing the girl. Now, if you look at what this girl looks like, what do you think? Is she a happy girl? No, she's sad. She's lonely. Okay, and she's kind of staring out the window, and she sees these 3 ladies walking by. Now, it's going to tell you 3 things about these ladies, which all 3 of these characteristics of these ladies help them be good spinners. Okay, so let's see what these ladies have.
The first woman had a broad, flat foot. The second had a big underlip that hung down over her chin, and the third had a big, broad thumb.
So keep those in mind. We're going to keep reading, and you'll see what those things have to do. So broad is like big and kind of thick, flat foot. One of them has an underlip that hung down over her chin. You can kind of do that with your own lip. And then the third had a big, broad thumb. So you'll see what those things get used for in just a moment.
"Hey there," called out the girl. The women stopped in front of the window. "I am up here spinning. Want to help?" The three women smiled, for they indeed loved to spin. The women conferred, then said, "We will finish your spinning, but you must call us your cousins and invite us to your wedding." "Done," cried the girl. "Please spin now." The three spinsters sailed in and started spinning. The first drew out the thread and then moved the treadle that turned the wheel. The second moistened the thread, while the third twisted it. Then she rapped on the table, and a heap of finely spun flax fell to the floor.
Okay, so this is where those three things come in, all right? So the first one had the broad foot. So the broad foot is used for the
Treadle.
treadle, right? And it is kind of like a pedal or like a lever. If your mom or your dad has a sewing machine at home, you might have seen it because sewing machines have these too. And then the second moistened the thread with her thumb, right? Remember, not with her thumb. She used her lip to get the thread wet. And then the third wrapped on the table, which means she like hit the table and the flax gets all spun and it falls on the floor. All right. So that kind of makes sense. If it's still a little confusing to you, don't worry. I had to kind of take a couple minutes to understand it myself because I wasn't super familiar with it either. All right, let's keep reading.
The three spinsters spun all day long. Heaps of flax filled 3 rooms. As the three spinsters took their leave, they said, "Do not forget your promise, cousin." When the queen and the prince saw the huge mounds of spun flax, Her Majesty said, "The wedding will commence on the morrow."
All right, so here's a couple more words that might be a little confusing to you. So this word commence just means to begin. So the wedding will begin, the wedding will start. And then on the morrow was just a way to say tomorrow, okay? And sometimes people talk, in the olden days, they talked a little different than how we talk now. So that just means the wedding will happen tomorrow.
The girl then said softly, "I have one request. My 3 cousins have shown me such sweetness. I wish to invite them to the wedding." "Yes, why yes, of course," said the queen. On the day of the wedding feast, in sauntered the 3 spinsters, delighted to be at the affair. "Dear cousins, welcome," said the bride with a knowing nod and wink. "How is it that my beautiful bride has such strange-looking relations?" the prince wondered. Seeking an answer, he went up to the first cousin. "How is it that you have such a broad, flat foot?" he asked.
Uh-oh. What do you guys think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to figure it out? I don't know. Let's keep reading.
"With treading," answered she, "with much treading." Then he asked the second, "How is it that you have such a great hanging lip?" "With licking," answered she, "with much licking." Then he asked the third, "How is it that you have such a broad thumb?" "With twisting thread," answered she, "with much twisting thread." "Ah," cried the prince with delight, "you are natural-born spinsters." Overjoyed by this discovery, he decreed that from that time forward, his bride should never spin a spinning wheel again.
Okay, phew. The prince didn't find out. And now the bride kind of gets away with it. He knows that she has cousins that are natural born spinners, so she doesn't have to do it anymore. Lucky for her. Not very truthful, though, is it? All right, friends. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go back to the beginning of the story. We are going to highlight in one of our highlight colors that the different parts that are the problem, okay? So grab your highlighters, turn back to page 6 and page 7. So we know that part of this problem was there was a girl who just would not spin, right? And the queen walks by and hears these ladies screaming and asks, what is going on? But here's where part of the problem is. The mother is ashamed of her daughter and says, I cannot stop her from spinning. So she starts to lie. So this right here in paragraph 3 is part of our problem. So the queen says, I would love to have her in my castle because my sons love that sound of the spinning wheel. So again, part of this lie, this is the problem. And so the daughter goes to the castle. Then the queen says, well, once you do all this spinning, you shall marry, you shall marry my eldest son. This is where the problem gets way worse, right? So now she has the pressure to marry the prince, but she can't spin, right? Oh my goodness. She cries herself to sleep and she was terrified. So what ends up happening? All of these purple highlights are part of our
Smiled.
part of our problem, right? So now let's switch to our solution. The girl was a pretty quick thinker, right? And oops, we're not going to turn the page quite yet. She sees these women out there and she's kind of daydreaming and thinking like, oh, they're probably good spinners. They have all these right qualities. And she asks for their help, right? So let's highlight that she saw 3 women. Oh, did I tell you we're in a different color highlighter? I can't remember. So we're highlighting in our other highlighter color. This is our solution. So she saw 3 women passing by and she says, want to help? And they smiled because they loved to spin. All right, let's turn the page. So then they said, all right, we will spin, but you must do this in return. Find what she said in paragraph 10. What must the girl do in return? She said, but you must call us your cousins and invite us to the wedding. And the girl says, great, no problem. So this is all part of the solution, right? The spinners start helping, and they do all of it in one day. So the three spinsters spin all day long, and now this girl's problems are solved. So the queen and the prince saw the huge mounds of flax and then say, whoops, the wedding will happen tomorrow. So who gets invited? The three spinsters saunter into the wedding, right? And last but not least, that's when the prince starts talking to these spinsters. And he's like, oh, natural born spinsters. Do you remember this part at the very end? He decides that from that time forward, his bride should never spin a wheel again. So this girl solved her problem by asking for help from these three spinsters, right? Okay, so here is what your job is to do next. You are going to write a little summary. Remember, your summary is not going to be very long. 1, 2, maybe 3 sentences. You're not going to go into all the detail of like the treading and the licking and the twisting. Just think about, if you wanted me to know what was this story about, what things would you tell me? Okay, you can write it on any of these pages, and when you're done, you'll submit it on Canvas. Please read the whole entire summary to me. All right, friends, great work. We'll see you later.